Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lost in Translation show. This is Simone, your host. Today's content consists of the prepping suggestions that I received from my subscribers in the comment section of a recent podcast. Please join me today on a pictorial drive past Whiskeytown Lake and the historic old mining town of French Gulch. This town was famous during the mid-1800s when rich deposits of gold were discovered. The town is located in Shasta County in Northern California. Whiskeytown Lake is man-made, and part of the reservoir is connected to the Central Valley Project in the northwestern region of California's Central Valley. Whiskeytown, originally called Whiskey Creek Diggings, was founded in 1849. French Gulch was settled in 1849 too. This town was a stop on the Wells Fargo Pony Express, and the remnants of the old placer mines are still present in the creek beds that are still stacked high with rock tailing piles from the rich gold mines of the California Gold Rush. The lake is a major reservoir in the foothills of the Klamath Mountains, 9 miles west of Redding. The reservoir's dam was built in 1969 on Clear Creek, a tributary of the Sacramento River, where it drains part of the Trinity River Basin. Please enjoy the beautiful scenery as we discuss the subscribers' helpful suggestions. People had some thoughtful suggestions that will help people be better prepared in case of emergency. As the world is on fire around us, supply chains are under pressure. The U.S. government has advised U.S. citizens living in China to stock 2 weeks of food, medicine, and water and refrain from leaving their homes as demonstrations flare across China. In France, people are being limited to the amount of money they can withdraw from the bank, and demonstrations continue there. In England, the banks have stopped making real estate loans. Leaders in England and Germany are warning their citizens that there will be an energy supply shortage for heating this winter. In the USA, the Port of Long Beach is practically empty, and the railroad unions are threatening a nationwide strike. Being self-sufficient will help you and your family cope with supply chain interruptions, inflation, and limited resources. The emergency preparedness show that aired recently focused on stocking several months of food like canned items, dried foods like beans and rice, pet food, medications, and first aid supplies, in addition to basic items like candles, flashlights, and hurricane lamps. This stocking strategy is good for events like snowstorms, public unrest, as a hedge against inflation or interruptions in the local food supply. But as one of the subscribers, Gone Fishing, pointed out, a long-term food supply list should include the following suggestions. I will be reading some excerpts from his post. Thank you, Gone Fishing, for your comments. A working pantry is nice to have if you live in a location that is prone to bad weather and sudden road closures. But a working pantry filled with regular canned goods is not the same thing as having long-term food storage plans for disasters. If you want to have food security in case of a prolonged disaster, including another Great Depression, you want food that is packaged for long-term storage and that can keep for 10 to 20 years in a cool, dry, and vermin-free storage room. With long-term food storage, you buy it once, store it properly, and forget about it until it is needed years in the future. The problem with relying upon regular, non-refrigerated, short-term food from the supermarket is you have to keep rotating, replacing it before it spoils. How do you know the replacement food will be available at a price you can afford sometime in the future? You do not know this. During World War II, many foods were rationed in the U.S., and many of the non-rationed foods were in short supply. If you want food security at a lowest cost, stock up on bulk-bought white rice, rolled oats, wheat, granulated cane sugar, culinary salt, dried legumes like beans, peas, and lentils, powdered non-fat milk, white flour, and dried pastas made from white flour that are all packaged for long-term storage. Typically, this means pre-packaging the dry basic foods at home in heat-sealed Mylar bags along with 1 or 2 oxygen absorbers. There are free tutorials on internet showing how to do this. And you store those filled Mylar bags inside the 5-gallon plastic buckets that tight-fitting lids or in clean cardboard boxes taped closed, so the Mylar does not accidentally get punctured. But white sugar and culinary salt can be stored directly inside airtight, waterproof containers without the need for oxygen absorbers. Raw honey in the original container can store in a cool, dark cabinet for as long as the container lasts. If you do not want to do your own food repackaging, you can buy number 10 cans of basic food storage from one of the home storage centers run by LDS volunteers, or order home delivery of such foods from the online store. Go to www.providentliving.org. That's providentliving.org. The prices on the website are for a box of 6 number 10 cans of a particular food, and there is a flat shipping fee. The online site often sells out, but they do restock as soon as they can. The average adult needs about 2,000 calories per day. A year of food for one adult comes to 730,000 calories. That's 2,000 by 365 days. Now check out the total calories in one of those cans of Campbell's soup or Dinty Moore beef stew or whatever canned goods you have in your short-term food storage. Take the time to sum up the total amount of calories for your short-term food storage to see how many days of food you would have for just one adult in your household. You may be unpleasantly surprised how little food you actually have, even if your pantry looks full. You need to know this before the time comes when there could be severe shortages of food or soaring food prices. 20 pounds of wheat grain is 272 servings of 150 calories each. That is a total of 40,800 calories. And a food bucket of 20 pounds of wheat grain does not take up nearly the amount of space that 40,800 calories of a regular canned goods from the supermarket would. And that wheat can easily store for 20 years in a cool, dry, vermin-free location. Don't want to grind that grain into flour and do your own baking and pasta making? Just soak some wheat grain overnight and then the next day simmer for about 40 minutes, just like you would making brown rice. Top the cooked wheat with some kind of cooked dried legume. A drizzle of cooking fat, pure olive oil, and coconut oil can store up to 4 years in a dark, dry place. And a dash of salt, you can have the right combination of amino acids to make a complete protein at far less cost than getting your protein from meat, poultry, seafood, or eggs. Add a beverage made from powdered milk and clean water, and you have boosted the meal's protein plus added calcium and vitamin D. This is one of my favorite suggestions that Gone Fishing made. A breakfast of oatmeal porridge mixed with some sugar and powdered milk, because it's both filling and low cost compared to breakfasts of Frosted Flakes or Cheerios and fresh milk. Stir in some raisins or dried cranberries, ground cinnamon, and perhaps some chopped nuts to make the porridge even tastier. And rolled oats packaged for long-term storage can store for 20 years in a cool, dry, vermin-free pantry. Oatmeal provides a lot of complex carbohydrate calories at a low cost. Do consider how you can store enough calories for the longest time and at the least cost. This will not be with the regular canned and boxed non-refrigerated foods from the supermarket. So these are some really detailed suggestions and affordable to stock for everyone's family. I might add a cookbook to the Gone Fishing list because many people have not learned how to cook from scratch or taught their children to cook either. Another friend of mine, Mark, suggested including advice about using large plastic watertight containers to bury long-term emergency food supplies. This is a common practice for many preppers. In the event of long-term supply chain interruptions or seizures of food stocks by FEMA, raiders, or the military, hiding your food supply in the ground in well-sealed containers is a good suggestion. I will not go into great detail on this practice, but there are plenty of blogs that cover the strategy of burying food for long-term food security. Another subscriber, Sunset, suggested having an indoor garden on the countertop. Hydroponic in small pots, growing sprouts, microgreens, even mushrooms that can be grown from kits. She suggested a Mr. Stacky on wheels and grow bags. Of course, having an outside spring, summer, and fall winter garden is ideal. Learning to preserve, dry, can, and freeze food from the garden is very important too. One of my other subscribers, Guy, suggested an easy and cheap way to take the chill off a room using a can of Crisco or lard, a used pineapple juice can, a candle, and a pottery planting pot to make an old-fashioned heater. Now, this seemed like a really good idea. Just a candle burning can increase the room's temperature by quite a bit. So we did try this suggestion, but for some reason this did not work quite as well as we expected. Maybe some of my subscribers have a suggestion to explain what I am doing wrong. I have seen similar concept of the candles and pottery heaters online for much higher prices. So I will keep on experimenting with this cheap and easy heat source. Just a short recap of some of these suggestions. A long-term emergency food plan requires having some basic staples like oats, wheat grain, legumes, rice, salt, flour, oils, honey, and powdered milk. This food should provide a 2,000 calorie per day diet for each adult in your household. Storing your food in Mylar bags and airtight bins is the key to preserving food for as long as 20 years. Practice some of the recipes made with the food storage ingredients and include a cookbook in your bins. Bury a supply of these food essentials in your yard if possible. Just be sure the storage bins are airtight and that you watch some other preppers' blogs to gain more insight into the proper procedures for burying food. This long-term food supply should be forgotten about and is only for future emergency use. Think about starting an indoor and an outdoor garden for fresh vegetables and microgreens. Learn to preserve what your family does not consume by canning, drying, or freezing the vegetables and fruits that come from your garden. Find new and cheaper ways to heat your home. Try the juice can heater that has a candle with lard and a pottery pot. Research other strategies that will help keep your family warm this winter at a lower cost and reduce your reliance on public utilities and traditional fuel sources. And just to clarify that my comments about the Port of Long Beach being empty referred to the amount of ships coming from China and other trading partners into the west coast of the United States. Compared to this time last year, the amount of activity in the port is quiet. Alternatively, the East Coast ports are quite busy right now. There are different ways to track shipping activity, and some links will be added to the comment section below. Additionally, I do not have personal connection to any of the food supply websites or food products in this presentation, or any organized religion. The last part of the slideshow has scenes from Shasta City that's on the way to Whiskeytown Lake and French Gulch. California has so many different areas and landscapes. I enjoy sharing my home state and our history with my viewers. So I hope the subscribers found this information helpful. And thanks again to the people who contributed their ideas to this podcast by providing so many helpful ideas about becoming more self-sufficient. I hope you enjoyed the pictorial tour of this lovely winding country road in California and a short visit to Whiskeytown Lake and the mining town of French Gulch. This is Simone, signing off for today.